Well, you can see it ran. It starts and runs. Doesn't need to idle kind of high, not more than what it should. Is about 2,500 RPMs. So, you know, to stay idling, where one in good shape, this model, they idled down to 1,800 RPMs is very low. It's like a really good, like my good milling saw that I built with mostly new parts. It'll idle down to 1,800 when it's warmed up and stay idling. This one, the clutch shouldn't engage at 2,500, and I have new springs that I might have to put on, but that'll help it out. Now I just have to put on a clutch and bar and chain, you know, the gears for the bar oiler, and see what it does then, and probably test the compression. Okay, I got the saw together. I had to put new clutch springs in because the chain kept spinning, and in order for it to stay running, it kind of needs to be a high idle, and it stalls when it's warmed up. It'll die and it'll be hard to start again, which I suspect is ignition related. I never did go back and fix the electrical tape on the ignition. Next time, I'm not going to work on it now, but next time I'm going to go through all the ignition and probably replace all the wires and make sure that's all good. And I might advance the timing, the ignition timing, just a hair to see if that helps it to start better. The spark isn't great, so I'm thinking that the coil might be just a weak coil. But it seemed to be really powerful. I had to tune it on the lean side to get the power out of it. Usually for my milling saws, I tune them a little rich. This one, it tends to flood easily, or just stall, kind of sputter and stall, and then it's really hard to start. And I don't know if it's really flooding because I didn't see any gas on the spark plug, but it just keeps stalling, and it helps to turn the idle up to about 3,000 RPMs. With the new aftermarket clutch springs, the chain won't advance. With the OEM, they'll advance anything over 2,500, so I had to switch them out. But if I can get it going reliably, which I don't know if I can, it could just be a compression problem. It won't idle if the compression isn't high enough. I haven't checked the compression yet. I'm going to check it when it cools down. It seems to get really hot, which I don't think is abnormal, but after it stalls, I take the plug off and have to, carefully juggle the plug so I don't burn myself, which is, I don't think that's abnormal, but it gets real hot. It could use a dual port muffler. I have one on another saw. I could switch it out, but it's just got a single port muffler. These Magnums, I think, usually came with a dual port. I could use a better air filter. This is just an aftermarket, and I like the foam air filters. They have better flow and filtration. So it could use more air going through. That would prevent overheating, both in the air filter and the exhaust. Go through the ignition, and that's what I'll probably do next time, is just go through the ignition. I think I got the clutch all handled. I don't have the right. I have an 045 clutch on it. It's a 056. I had to actually grind the drum just to make it work. But I got a bunch of all these ones that were on old 045 chainsaws. And, it wasn't nothing to grind one down a little bit. has an 8-pin sprocket on it, so it cuts. It's a 3/8 8-pin sprocket. I could put the 7-pin, it'd probably be easier on it, but it has plenty of power. That's a 28-inch bar, and it seemed to have plenty of power. I don't know how it would compare to my other ones, but it seemed to cut good when it runs. It's just hard to keep running. Okay, I got it running, and it took a bit. I had to actually try 2 more ignitions. This was the original one that it would run, but it seemed like it would misfire now and then and stall, and I had to leave it on a high idle to keep it running. So I switched that out. I tried this. This is actually a new one, but at some point this piece broke off. I took the coil wire out, and there's a piece in there that just broke off where the coil wire screws in. So I soldered it back on and glued it together and tried this one, and it had really good spark, but it just wouldn't start. I couldn't get it to start. It might work if I mess with the flywheel timing, but I didn't feel like messing with it. I'll save that and try it for another day. This one, I don't know. The problem with this plate and that plate also is they don't have timing marks on them. I used a plate for this one. I used a different plate with to a Bosch electronic ignition, and those have a little timing mark, and there's a timing mark on the inside of side of the case, and you line them up, and that's where it's supposed to be. And then I had to guess on the flywheel key timing, but because I had to take the key out and advance it a little bit, or technically it's not advancing it, it's just putting it where it should be, because it's the wrong flywheel for the setup. But now it seems like it runs the way the saw should, except I have it tuned. You know, these are generally tuned 1 1/8 turn out on the high needle, and then I had to turn this one back 1 1/2 turns, and it was still over 12,500 for RPM. But I don't know. I don't know if that. I mean, I had a fuel line modification. It might be allowing a little more gas into it. The cylinders scored up real bad. I think I have pictures. I forgot to take pictures when I had it on, before I put it on, but I think I might have pictures I can show. And you know, it's got the repair on the bottom of the gas tank, a repair on the bar oil, a repair inside the crank case where the crankshaft is, you know, where the pads meet. You know, it's got a lot of fixes to it, and I think what made it actually run good, other than having it finally getting a good ignition together, and I just pulled a coil out that I thought was fried, and I got lucky, and it might not. When it gets really hot, it might fail. Sometimes they'll start up and run for half an hour and then start getting weak. But it seemed good. It had a really strong spark up front, you know. So I don't have time. It's getting dark now, so I can't, you know, use it more to see if the coil's good. But it's running the way it should. It has really good throttle response. It idles down to in between 2,000 and 2,500, which that's where it's supposed to. I put the foam air filter on, and I put a dual port muffler on, and I notice it doesn't seem to get quite as hot. Before, it just seemed like it was radiating heat, and that's because I was using this muffler, and I think it's just a single port muffler. And I think these were actually made for the dual port. I don't think they're made to just use with just that, because if you look at it, really not very big of a hole there. It's just a little hole, little slot, and I don't think that's enough for a Magnum. But I didn't have another pipe back, so I just used that. I could drill holes in it, but I'd probably I might save that for a dual port if I ever get a piped back, and drill holes in one of my other ones. But that's that. So next time I get a chance, I'll use it. I don't have a log to mill right now, so it might be a while for that. But I can cut stuff up and cut up firewood, see if the ignition holds up. But it's running great. I wouldn't even know. Like if I showed this to someone and they ran it, they wouldn't even know all the things that's wrong with it. It's crazy. It's like this cylinder's, there's probably at least a couple dozen score marks that you can scrape your finger on, all the way up to the top of the cylinder and everything. But the piston's new, and I think the new piston and rings, I think, is what helped it bump that compression up. I tested it with cold compression, and it was about almost 130 psi, and the rings aren't seated. It hasn't been used enough. The rings will probably seat a little bit in there, and the compression will go up some, I believe. They're aftermarket rings, aftermarket piston, but it should go up. And then with the castor oil, that was part of the experiment. I think even just regular oil, it would just run fine, like regular 2-cycle. But I'm still gonna see if the castor oil builds up carbon and fills in the holes. But the thing is I bought this castor oil. I bought the cold pressed, and that's kind of the good quality stuff. And I don't think that it has as much problem gumming up and creating. It probably has carbon, but I don't know if it makes as much of a film because it's more pure. But I'll try it. I didn't want to buy. I don't know. I should have just bought the cheapest for what this is. But it's the way it runs. I don't know if it has the torque, but it has the. It feels powerful. Even when it was running with the lesser ignition, it would cut through stuff pretty good. Of course, I wasn't cutting 3-foot diameter logs. I was just cutting maybe 12-inch. But it's, I could tell it had some power. It was, it was ash, so it was kind of hard. So, I think I got it going, so we'll see how it goes next time. Okay, I'm just going to do a cold compression test and see how it starts. Got about 130. It was up to 130. My gauge leaks down a little bit. But that's pretty good.